A single Word document lands in an inbox. It looks completely ordinary logo at the top, a short message, maybe something labeled invoice, resume, or payment details. Nothing feels off at first glance, but inside that familiar file format, a few lines of embedded logic may already be waiting for permission to act. And the moment a user clicks one button, the system quietly shifts from document viewer to code execution environment. That's the uncomfortable truth behind macro-based attacks. They don't break into systems by forcing doors open. They convince Office to open the door for them. Welcome to BlueHat Cybersec Academy. In this breakdown, we'll walk through how macro-based exploits in Microsoft Office actually work, why they still succeed decades after being introduced, and what real defenses look like when you focus less on theory and more on how people actually behave under pressure. And by the end, you'll see how something as normal as a document can quietly become one of the most effective malware delivery methods in real-world attacks. Macros were originally created for productivity inside Word and Excel, using VBA, or Visual Basic for applications, to automate repetitive tasks like formatting reports or processing data. But the critical issue is simple. If a document can run code, it can also run malicious code. Macro-based attacks live entirely inside that overlap, not by exploiting software bugs, but by abusing a built-in feature that was never meant to be dangerous on its own. This means attackers don't need memory corruption, zero-day vulnerabilities, or complex system break-ins. They only need user trust and the permission to execute. To understand how this plays out in reality, it helps to follow the sequence these attacks typically use. It begins with delivery, where a file arrives as something like a DOCM or XLSM document, often disguised as an invoice, resume, or official business notice. It is usually sent through phishing emails or compromised accounts, and everything about it is designed to look completely normal so that nothing triggers suspicion. Then comes the most important moment in the entire chain, the enable content prompt. Since Office does not automatically execute macros, attackers rely on user interaction. They create pressure through messages that suggest the document is protected, or that macros are required to view it properly, or even by introducing formatting issues that make the file appear broken. Sometimes urgency is added to push faster decisions. At this point, the attack stops being technical and becomes psychological, because the system is no longer the primary defense. The user is. Once macros are enabled, VBA code begins executing inside a trusted Office environment. From there, the code can quietly download additional payloads, run PowerShell commands, write files to disk, or attempt persistence so the system remains infected even after reboot. But this stage is rarely the final objective. The document itself is usually just a loader, a trigger that starts something larger rather than delivering the full attack immediately. After that comes payload delivery, where the actual malware is retrieved. This can include remote access tools that give full control of the system, keyloggers that capture everything typed, credential stealers that extract login data, or ransomware that encrypts files for extortion. The reason attackers use this staged approach is simple. It helps them avoid detection, delay suspicious behavior, and change payloads without modifying the original document. The reason these attacks still work today is not because they are advanced, but because they align with how people and organizations behave. Office documents feel inherently trustworthy compared to executable files. Many businesses still depend on macros for legitimate workflows, which makes full blocking difficult. On top of that, users are constantly exposed to security warnings, and over time, those warnings become easy to ignore, especially when the document appears routine or urgent. Modern macro malware has also evolved. It is no longer simple or obvious. Much of it now includes heavily obfuscated code that is hard to read, encrypted data hidden inside scripts, delayed execution to avoid detection in sandboxes, checks for virtual environments, and even logic that prevents execution if analysis is detected. In some cases, the malware is designed not just to infect systems, but to avoid being studied at all. Defending against this requires more than just antivirus tools. One of the strongest measures is blocking macros and files downloaded from the internet by default. Application control also matters, where systems are configured to only allow trusted or signed code to run. Email filtering and attachment sandboxing can stop many attacks before they even reach a user. But the most consistent weakness remains human decision-making, which is why realistic phishing simulations and clear organizational policies are often more effective than generic awareness training. At the center of everything, there is always a single decision point. The attack succeeds or fails based on whether a user trusts a document enough to allow it to execute code. Everything else in the chain exists only to influence that moment. Macros were never designed as vulnerabilities. They were productivity features built for a different era of trust in computing. But that trust no longer matches today's threat landscape. Macro-based attacks persist not because they are sophisticated, but because they fit perfectly into normal digital behavior, where speed, familiarity, and routine warning fatigue often override caution. Now think about this in a practical sense. If you received a Word document labeled as an urgent invoice and it asked you to enable macros to view it properly, what would be the first subtle signs you would check before even considering that click? Why do you think attackers still prefer macros instead of directly using executable malware? And in your opinion, which part of the attack chain is actually the most dangerous? The delivery, the execution, or that single human decision moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments so we can compare how different perspectives break down the same attack. And if you want more breakdowns like this, where malware is explained as a real process instead of just a definition, you'll find it in the Malware Encyclopedia playlist. If this helped you understand how these attacks actually work under the hood, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into real-world cyber threats.